Hello there, and welcome to the sleepy sky. I'm glad you've arrived in this gentle corner of the night, at this quiet moment that belongs only to you. The day has done what it needed to do, with its movement and noise and demands, and now it can soften at the edges. You do not have to solve anything, or hold anything, or carry any heavy thoughts. You can simply rest here in this slow unfolding of story and science, and let the night draw a soft line between what has been and what can quietly wait until tomorrow, if you wish. You can let your shoulders fall a little, as if gravity has become kinder, not heavier. You might feel the weight of your body supported by the bed, or the chair, or the place you are resting. The air around you may feel a little cooler now, or a little warmer, but it is steady, calm, and still. Somewhere outside, there may be a faint sound, the distant hush of a car, a soft rustle of leaves, the low hum of a sleeping room. All of it blends into a kind of background cradle, holding you in a small, safe silence. Tonight, we drift together through the calm spaces of our solar system, not in a rush of discovery, but in a slow walk through familiar light. We will not chase anything. We will not race from one fact to another. We will move like a quiet tide, learning how these worlds rest in their orbits, how they circle a star that has been patient for billions of years. Science becomes a soft lantern in the dark, lighting the shapes of things without blinding the eyes. Curiosity can stay here, but it does not need to sharpen. It can relax and open and breathe. Our journey begins near the sun, though not in its fierce brightness, not in the blinding glare that you might imagine on a summer day. We start in a softer image, as if we are standing at a distance where the sun is a warm and steady lantern in a dark room. Its light spreads outward in every direction, touching planets, dust, and drifting ice with the same quiet generosity. Inside that bright sphere, deep beneath the glowing surface, tiny particles fuse together in a constant, silent process, turning hydrogen into helium, turning mass into light. Most of the light that reaches your skin began long ago in the sun's dense core, where photons are born in crowded, hot conditions. They move outward, step by step, bouncing and scattering through layers of plasma, in a journey that can take hundreds of thousands of years. Only when they finally escape the surface do they race across space in a straight, clean line, taking just about 8 minutes to cross the distance to Earth, a beam of sunlight that warms your face or glows against your window carries that long, patient story inside it. You do not have to think about those details. You never needed to ask the light to travel, or the sun to burn, or space to open a path. It all simply happens, steadily, quietly, every moment of your life. Let that thought be gentle on your mind. The universe holds many things without you needing to hold them all at once. It is enough, for now, to rest in this understanding like someone floating on calm water, supported from below. With nothing pressing from above, you are allowed to rest in this moment, with no expectations at all around the sun. The space between worlds opens like a deep, soft ocean. We move outward now, slowly, drifting away from the bright surface and into the wide, dark calm that surrounds it. The sun begins to feel smaller behind us, though its pull is still strong, like a quiet hand at the center of an invisible web. Out here, the light is still warm, but more gentle, spreading over a vast emptiness that is never truly empty in this space. Particles stream outward as the solar wind, charged fragments of atoms, flowing in all directions. They move silently, far too faint to hear, but if sound could travel here, it might resemble a long, low sigh. The solar wind stretches across the solar system, brushing past planets, curving around magnetic fields, carrying the sun's influence even into distant darkness. It is a constant breath from the star at the center, a reminder that even in quiet there is motion. In that quiet there is motion, and the motion is slow and kind. The space between planets is not crowded. It is wide, dark, and peaceful. If you imagine yourself drifting here, there is no rush of air against your face, no shaking of engines beneath your feet. There is only the almost silence of your own steady breathing, the soft rhythm of your heart, and the faint, imagined glow of sunlight stretching ahead. The darkness is not threatening. It is more like deep velvet, spread out in every direction, holding scattered points of light that shine without effort. Tiny grains of dust move through this space, reflecting sunlight in pale, scattered halos. Asteroids and small rocks follow their own long paths around the sun, obedient to gravity's gentle curve. Each one keeps to its track, looping in slow, repeating arcs. They do not hurry. They do not collide often. Most of the time, they simply drift, age after age, around the same guiding star. The order of these motions is simple and quiet objects drawn by gravity into orbits that balance speed and distance in a graceful dance. You can let your thoughts move like those orbits now, circling more slowly, moving further away from the center of today's concerns. Whatever asked for your attention earlier can sit on its own path for a while, without you needing to follow it. You can let your mind float a little, knowing that it will find its balance again. Deep inside, your own systems are following patterns. 2 heartbeats, breaths, signals in your brain, each one organizing itself in a way that keeps you here, present and alive. You are gently supported by countless quiet processes working on your behalf. We drift further from the sun, and the light around us shifts. It loses some of its intensity, spreading thinner, becoming softer and cooler. The star behind us is still bright, but it now hangs in a sky that feels wider, more spacious. Ahead, the first planet waits on its path, moving along an orbit that hugs close to the warmth. Mercury circles the sun in a tight loop, small and ancient, but we will properly visit it later. For now, we simply notice how this innermost planet traces its path. Again and again, each orbit a long, slow journey through light and shadow, between us and Mercury. Gravity is like a quiet thread connecting everything: the sun, the planets, the dust, even our imagined point of view. Nothing is separate from that pull. Even when objects are far apart, they still feel each other's presence in delicate ways. This is one of the simple, tender truths of the solar system. Distance does not mean disconnection. Every world still belongs to the same shared field, the same gentle curve of space and time around the sun. The paths of planets are almost circular, slightly stretched into ellipses, moving in a common plane like beads sliding along flat, invisible wires. This plane is called the ecliptic, and most of the major bodies of our solar system stay near it, as if they are lying together on a thin cosmic sheet. Long ago, when the solar system was young, It formed from a rotating cloud of gas and dust that flattened as it spun, and the memory of that shape remains in these quiet, orderly paths. You might notice how your own thoughts can flatten out too. When you focus on something simple and slow, a breath coming in, a breath going out, the feeling of your body growing heavier and more relaxed. You do not need to analyze the details. You can just notice them gently and allow them to pass through. Like small currents moving through a calm sea, it is perfectly fine in this moment to let the world feel distant and soft. Beyond Mercury's orbit, Venus waits, veiled in swirling clouds, and beyond Venus, the familiar blue of Earth circles in its own time. All of these worlds are moving right now, even as you listen. They glide through space at great speeds, but from our quiet vantage point, there is no sense of rushing. Their motion feels steady and continuous, like the slow turning of a mobile above a sleeping child. When change happens over long stretches of time, it becomes gentle, almost invisible. We rest in that long view for a while. We think of the sun burning steadily for billions of years, not in violent bursts, but in a stable, sustained glow. We imagine planets that have completed their journeys around it countless times, yet still hold to their paths with quiet loyalty. Each orbit is a year, a loop in a pattern that does not need our permission to continue. There is a comfort in that, a reminder that the universe carries on even when we release our grip for a moment. You are free to release your grip for a moment. If we listen with our imagination, there might be a faint background sound here, a low, constant hum that stands in for all the unseen activity of the sun and its planets. It is not a loud noise, more like the gentle vibration of a train far away, or the soft murmur of distant waves against a shore. Inside that hum, there is structure. The sun rotates, the planets orbit, moons circle their worlds. Even tiny electrons around atoms move in their own discrete patterns in every direction. There is motion, yet the combined effect is peace. It is like standing in a forest where every leaf shifts slightly in the wind, but the overall impression is stillness. That is how the solar system can feel from far enough away. Many movements, one quiet whole. We lean a little into this sense of wholeness. We let it steady the breath. The thoughts that feel scattered can be imagined as small objects gently falling into orbits, each one finding a track where it no longer collides with others. Worries become distant spheres, circling without crashing, kept in place by a gravity that no longer feels heavy, only organizing. The mind does not have to be empty to be calm. It just has to be gently ordered. Like planets, spaced comfortably apart, your thoughts can find comfortable distance from each other now, leaving space for rest between them. We pause for a moment. In a region of space between Mercury and Venus, here, the sunlight is still bright, but not harsh. The warmth is noticeable, but not overwhelming. It feels like standing in a late afternoon field, where the heat of the day has softened and the air has begun to cool, yet the light remains golden and kind. The sun behind us shines with steady brilliance, and small dust particles around us catch its rays, glowing briefly before they fade back into darkness. As we linger in this place, we can sense how the inner solar system blends light and quiet. The star at the center supplies energy, but the space between worlds dilutes it into a gentle presence. It touches everything without pushing too hard. We can take that as a quiet lesson. Influence does not always need force. Sometimes it is enough just to shine and let the light travel, and let others decide how to receive it. The sun does not reach out with hands. It only radiates, and the rest follows. That radiance continues in every direction. And in every direction, planets and smaller bodies respond by tracing their slow paths around it. From this soft beginning near the sun, a whole family of orbits unfolds. Each world with its own story, its own colors, its own texture of light and shadow. We have not yet walked across their surfaces or drifted through their atmospheres, but they are already here with us, like shapes waiting just beyond the curtain of sleep. From this soft beginning near the sun, we follow the quiet path outward toward the worlds that glow in patient orbits, and the calm story of the next waiting world gently approaches, ready to meet us when we drift a little farther into the night, closest to the sun. There is a small and ancient world that turns slowly in the light. Mercury moves in a tight, careful orbit, circling the star in just 88 Earth days, yet its own rotation is slow and measured. One spin takes nearly 2 of its years, creating days and nights that stretch long beyond familiar rhythms. Time rests differently here, not in short, ticking fragments, but in wide, unhurried spans. Those long spans unfold over a surface marked by age. Mercury's crust is gray and muted, covered in craters that overlap like layers of memory. Some are deep and wide, their rims softened by fine dust. Others are small and sharp, scattered across plains of ancient lava that cooled into stillness long ago. There is no wind to smooth the stones, no rain to wash the scars. Every impact remains, bearing witness to a past when debris moved more freely through the early solar system. That quiet record of impacts lies in place for millions, even billions, of years. In the absence of weather, nothing hurried comes to erase it. A soft, powdery regolith covers the rock beneath, grains of crushed stone shaped by sunlight and micrometeor strikes. Footsteps here, if there ever were any, would remain for ages, etched into dust that rarely stirs. Across this silent ground, shadows stretch long and thin, falling into craters and rising over ridges with no sound at all. Shadows stretch long and thin, and in those shadows, time feels slower still. Above this surface, the sky is dark even when the sun hangs enormous and bright. Mercury has no thick atmosphere to scatter light into blue, no cushion of air to blur the edge between day and night. The result is a strange, stark beauty. On the day side, the star dominates the sky, larger than it appears from Earth, radiating intense brilliance. On the night side, stars blaze with sharp clarity, undimmed by haze or cloud. Between these two extremes, the terminator, the line between day and night, moves slowly across the world, tracing a slow, deliberate boundary between heat and cold. In that slow movement, there is a rhythm that never rushes. The same landscape may stand under blazing light for weeks, then sink into deep, lingering darkness for an equally long span. Temperatures swing widely, scorching in the day, bitterly cold in the night. Yet the world itself remains steady in its orbit, steady in its spin. Balance exists not in mildness, but in the repeating pattern of extremes. Within such patterns, a strange kind of comfort appears. Everything moves according to simple rules that hold from one long day to the next, and from one long night to the next. Nothing here is chaotic in its motion, even if the conditions seem harsh. The cycles repeat, steady and unwavering, as though the planet is humming a low and constant note beneath the blazing sun. In this steady note of repetition, everything is gently allowed to rest in its own way. The way Mercury turns is shaped by its relationship to the Sun. It is locked in what astronomers call a spin-orbit resonance, rotating 3 times for every 2 trips around its star. Because of this, the same regions face the Sun at nearly the same points in each orbit, creating a rhythm where certain longitudes linger more often in daylight, while others spend more time in extended dusk. This is not chance. It is the result of gravitational interactions that settled into a stable pattern long ago. Gravitational tides from the suns once pulled more fiercely on Mercury's rocky body, gradually slowing its spin until that 3-to-2 balance was reached. When the right rhythm was found, the tugging became gentle, and the planet settled into a configuration that requires no effort to maintain. The world simply continues turning at this rate, orbiting as it always has, following rules laid down over unimaginable stretches of time. This resonance creates a strange experience of a day there. For someone standing on the surface, one full cycle from noon back to the same noon would last almost 6 months in Earth's measure. Sunrise would be a rare event, drawn out over long hours, the sun creeping across the sky very slowly. The star would appear to pause, reverse, and move again due to the planet's combined spin and orbital motion. A slow dance of light across a cratered horizon. That slow dance of light moves over rock that is ancient, perhaps some of the oldest exposed surfaces in the solar system. Mercury's crust has cooled and thickened over time, shrinking as it lost heat. This shrinking created great cliffs called scarps, where the surface buckled and folded, leaving steps and ridges that can stretch for hundreds of kilometers. These scarps cast long, quiet shadows at low sun angles, carving dark lines across the bright ground. Imagine the textures there: sharp, fractured rock at the top of a cliff, fine dust collecting at its base, scattered boulders caught mid-slope as if frozen in the act of tumbling. The ground would feel hard and dry under any imagined foot. Yet the dust would be soft and powder-fine, sliding away in slow, graceful arcs. No breeze would move across it, no rustle of leaves, only the silence of vacuum, pressing gently against everything without sound. In such deep silence, even the faintest imagined noise becomes noticeable: the steady rhythm of a slowed heartbeat, the soft internal hum of thought, the delicate rustle of fabric. Against Mercury's quiet inner sounds would be the only sounds. Outside there is only stillness. In that deep stillness, it becomes easy for noise in the mind to grow softer above the surface. Mercury does not hold a dense atmosphere like Earth or Venus. Instead, it has an exosphere, a very thin envelope of particles that are knocked from its surface by sunlight, solar, wind, and tiny impacts. Atoms of sodium, oxygen, and other elements rise briefly before escaping into space or falling back again. This exosphere is so tenuous that it is almost a ghost of an atmosphere, more like a fading breath than a steady blanket of air. Yet, even this ghostly envelope responds to the sun. Charged particles from solar wind interact with Mercury's weak magnetic field, creating subtle currents and pressures. The field itself, though small, forms a tiny magnetosphere that arcs around the planet, deflecting some solar particles and guiding others into looping paths. The interactions are gentle on a human scale, invisible to eyes, yet they shape the environment, tracking the sun's moods in a faint, flickering dance. Magnetic lines bend and flow. Particles spiral and drift, and through it all, Mercury continues along its orbit. There is a flexibility in this system, a willingness of fields and particles to be guided, to bend rather than resist, to form patterns rather than chaos. The planet does not fight the solar wind. It simply meets it, and in that meeting, a quiet balance is found. In this image of balance, all harshness softens into something more peaceful. The temperature extremes of Mercury are often described in stark, dramatic terms, but here they can be felt as a slow breathing of heat. On the day side, without an atmosphere to trap or distribute warmth, the sun's energy falls directly on the ground, raising temperatures far above what humans could tolerate. The rock soaks in this heat, glowing in infrared like coals under an invisible fire. On the night side, the same lack of air allows heat to radiate away quickly into space, and the ground cools to deep, crystalline cold. This cycle, heating and cooling, glowing and fading, repeats with each long day and night. It is a simple pattern, like the filling and emptying of a tide pool. Nothing in it is rushed. The heat does not arrive in sudden flashes. It accumulates slowly, hour after long hour, then ebbs just as slowly when darkness falls. Everything happens according to the gradual turning of the planet, the reliable motion of orbit and spin. A world like this becomes a quiet teacher of extremes. It shows that intense conditions can still be governed by patient rhythms, that even fierce contrasts of hot and cold can be organized into gentle, predictable cycles. There is comfort in predictability. Where cycles are known, fear has less space to grow. Mercury does not fear its own days or nights. It simply continues, turning through them again and again within such ongoing cycles. Every restless pattern is invited to find its own slower pace. Long ago, when the solar system was young, Mercury likely experienced far more drama, heavier bombardment from asteroids, more frequent impacts, more chaotic orbits of nearby bodies. Now, that storm of formation has quieted. The larger impacts are mostly memories written into overlapping craters and shattered basins. The planet remains as a record, a preserved page from the early days of the Sun's family, giving insight into how rocky worlds were shaped. One of the largest impact features on Mercury is the Caloris Basin, a vast circular depression formed by a colossal collision. Around its edges, ridges and fractured terrain spread outward like ripples, frozen in stone. On the opposite side of the planet, seismic waves from that same impact converged, breaking the crust into a jumbled region called weird terrain, where hills and valleys twist in irregular patterns. These places look chaotic on a small scale, but even they obeyed the greater calm of a settled orbit and slowed rotation. The violence that created them is long past, leaving only quiet forms behind. This transformation from impact to stillness, from collision to calm, carries a soft lesson. Even intense events leave behind landscapes that eventually cease to change rapidly. Over time, the echoes fade. The dust settles. What once was sudden becomes part of a steady, almost meditative background in the wake of old collisions. Everything can become part of a quiet whole again. Modern spacecraft have flown past and around Mercury, mapping its surface and measuring its properties. These machines travel at great speed, guided by precisely calculated paths, performing delicate maneuvers around gravity wells. Yet, in the narrative of Mercury's age, their presence is brief. A spacecraft may pass by in moments. The planet continues its slow dance for eons. The contrast is striking, fleeting instruments of curiosity, observing a world that has watched countless sunrises and sunsets crawl across its horizon. The instruments, however, reveal details that deepen the sense of wonder. Variations in density hint at a large iron core beneath the crust, making Mercury one of the densest objects in the solar system. The core contributes to the magnetic field, which in turn shapes the delicate exosphere. Craters showing signs of hollows, bright, shallow depressions suggest ongoing surface changes, perhaps due to volatile materials sublimating away. Even in apparent stillness, there is subtle activity. This activity is patient, almost imperceptible. Atoms drift off into space. Minerals break down under intense sunlight. Over long stretches of time, small changes add up, shaping the world grain by grain. It is a reminder that transformation can happen at a pace too slow to notice in a single lifetime, yet still be real and significant. In such slow transformations, a deep, patient calm can be felt beneath every small change from a distance. Mercury's orbit outlines one of the innermost threads of the solar system's structure. It moves around the sun faster than any other planet. Yet the experience at its surface, due to its resonance, is one of strange, stretched days. The orbital speed does not translate into rushed life on the ground. Instead, the world carries its speed in the broad sweep of its path, leaving room for leisure in its turning. Light from the sun touches Mercury first, before Venus, Earth, or Mars. It warms this little world, then continues outward, spreading across the orbits of the other planets. In that sense, Mercury is the first rocky witness to each new wave of the sun's radiance. Every sunrise there is like a greeting at the threshold of the solar system's inner family. Metal-rich rocks gleam under that light, then cool again as the planet slowly rolls onward. These cycles repeat over and over, with no need for adjustment. The orbital path is stable. The resonance persists. The sun continues to shine. The planet moves in quiet agreement with all these forces, needing no conscious control, only the laws of physics, which act as silent caretakers of motion. Under such silent caretakers, the entire system is permitted to move without strain when viewed within the broader architecture of the solar system. Mercury becomes a simple beginning, the first small step away from the sun, the first solid world on a path that leads outward through many different environments and stories. Its gray cratered surface is a contrast to the golden clouds of Venus, the blue oceans of Earth, and the red deserts of Mars that lie farther out. Yet the same sunlight touches them all. The same gravitational pull keeps them in the sun's embrace. The quiet here, near Mercury's orbit, feels like the opening note of a larger piece of music. It is not loud or complex. It is a simple tone, sustained and unwavering, against which the other worlds will add their own deeper harmonies. Each planet will have its own way of handling light and heat, of shaping landscapes, of nurturing or forbidding life. Mercury's way is to hold stillness, extremes, and resonance in a small, enduring shell. In that shell of rock and metal, turning slowly closest to the sun, the story of calm in a place of intensity begins. It shows that even at the heart of bright radiance, a world can glide through its orbit with quiet dignity, carrying its scars and shadows without agitation, simply revolving, simply existing. And from Mercury's ancient stillness, the path leads outward toward a world wrapped in cloud and soft, golden haze, where another kind of quiet waits beneath a deeper, drifting sky farther from the sun than Mercury. There drifts a world wrapped in veils of pale gold, a sphere so thoroughly cloaked in cloud that its surface has rarely been seen by human eyes. Venus rotates beneath those layers with a slow, backward spin, turning in a direction opposite most other planets, as though following its own private rhythm. Its day stretches long, its nights even longer, and time feels as if it has folded into a soft loop of bright haze and lingering twilight. These clouds, thick and glowing, create a world where sunlight filters through in muted sheets. There is no direct glare here, no sharp shadows. Light diffuses through sulfuric layers, bending softly until the entire sky takes on a gentle, amber tone. The ground below, though hot and hidden, lies beneath this golden curtain, as if under thick, warm blankets. Under thick, warm blankets, the surface rests in a hush that does not waver. Inside the upper layers of Venus's atmosphere, winds circle the planet at tremendous speeds, yet even these fast-moving currents feel smooth from above, like satin ribbons flowing in wide spirals. They wrap around the world in a phenomenon called superrotation, completing a trip around the planet in just a few Earth days. Even while the solid surface turns at a glacial pace, this contrast creates a layered beauty, a planet with a quiet core and swift, whispering winds above it. Those winds do not roar. In this telling, they glide. They hum in low, continuous tones, forming soft patterns that echo across the cloud tops. If one could drift through them, the sensation might feel like moving through thick mist, carried along by currents that are firm but gentle. Their motion becomes a cue to breathe more slowly, to match the rhythm of something vast and unhurried. In that vast and unhurried rhythm, the mind has room to soften. The clouds above Venus are not uniform. They form swirling structures, long waves, spirals, plumes, shaped by subtle temperature differences, by sunlight warming one region more than another, by deep atmospheric tides that rise and fall like distant echoes of the sun's pull. As they move, they shift colors in delicate gradients, ivory fading into pale gold, gold into muted saffron, saffron into soft gray. These tones rest on the senses like quiet music, calm and low, high above the planet. Sunlight reflects off these clouds in a soft, milky glow. This reflective power makes Venus one of the brightest objects in Earth's night sky. Even from afar, it shines like a peaceful lantern hung just beyond the horizon. In many cultures, it has been called the morning star or the evening star, a steady light that marks the beginning or end of the day, offering a moment of pause before life shifts again. A moment of pause before life shifts again can be a kind of gift. The atmosphere grows denser as it descends, each layer becoming warmer and heavier. Temperatures rise in slow increments, pressure increases steadily, and the air thickens until it feels more like deep ocean than sky. Sunlight dims as the density climbs, turning the world beneath into a muted chamber of amber shadow. The ground glows faintly in this filtered light, as though lit from within. For centuries, the mystery of what lay beneath those clouds stirred imaginations. Some once pictured oceans, jungles, or swamps hidden under the haze. When spacecraft finally peered through the curtain with radar and landers, they found a rugged world of volcanic plains, fractured ridges, and high plateaus. Mountains rise through the mist. Lava flows stretch across the surface, cooled and cracked, but still bearing the marks of a restless past. Yet even here, in heat and rock, the stillness of the world is unmistakable. Volcanism may continue in subtle forms, but nothing moves quickly. No wind scours the ground. No rain falls. The weight of the atmosphere hushes every motion. Boulders sit in place, undisturbed for millennia. Undisturbed for millennia. They embody a quiet endurance. If you stood on Venus's surface, the sun would appear as a dim patch of light behind thick clouds, its outline softened beyond recognition. The sky would glow a deep, subdued tan. Shadows would vanish. Surroundings would seem wrapped in a persistent twilight, warm and dense. And though the air would be unimaginably heavy, the visual effect would be comforting, like being inside a softly lit room, where nothing startles and everything stays still. This blanket of atmosphere traps heat through a powerful greenhouse effect, creating temperatures that could melt lead. Yet even this intense warmth is evenly distributed, smoothing away extremes. Night and day are nearly the same temperature. Poles and equator differ only slightly. In a world so uniformly wrapped in cloud and heat, sharp contrasts soften until the whole planet feels like a single, continuous environment. In that continuous environment, the sense of time's passage slows. Venus spins so slowly that its day lasts longer than its year. Yet the experience of that day would not feel elongated. The ever-present clouds and heat create a timeless quality where one moment blends into the next without abrupt shifts. The planet's backward rotation retrograde spin adds another quiet, strange detail. Here, the sun would rise in the west and set in the east, but the change would be so gradual that each transition would feel more like a gentle shifting of light than a true sunrise or sunset, as the surface stays hidden beneath this vast curtain. Most of what we know about Venus comes from orbiters and landers that observed its patterns for brief periods. Those missions captured glimpses of mountains named after mythic figures, plains shaped by lava, tesserae of folded rock that look like ancient, wrinkled fabric. They recorded the pressure, the temperature, the chemistry of the atmosphere. They listened for seismic tremors, and watched clouds swirl high above. Even these missions, though precise and complex, feel small compared to the planet's immense patience. A lander might survive only hours amid the surface conditions, while Venus continues its long rotation, its endless hum of winds above, its slow internal processes below. In this contrast, we see once again how human instruments flicker like brief sparks, while planets endure like deep, steady embers. Deep, steady embers glow without urgency. High above, the upper atmosphere of Venus offers a different perspective. Temperatures are cooler, their pressure much lower. If one floated among those clouds, conditions would feel strangely Earth-like, not in composition, but in temperature and comfort. Airships have been proposed for future exploration of this region, drifting through the golden haze like quiet vessels on a soft, atmospheric sea. The idea evokes images of calm journeys through thick, glowing mists, moving with the winds rather than against them. In that drifting image, the atmosphere becomes not a barrier, but a place of rest. The slow movement of cloud patterns, the subtle play of color and light, the gentle warmth all suggest a world that, despite its extremes, offers a form of quiet contemplation. Venus, in this sense, is a dreamlike place, not gentle in its physics, but gentle in its visual poetry. In the way it turns light into soft amber tones and motion into drifting spirals from the quiet heights of the cloud tops. Patterns stretch across the planet like threads. Some clouds move in long, sweeping waves. Others form circular features around volcanic rises. Ultraviolet light reveals darker patches where unknown chemicals absorb radiation, hinting at mysteries still unsolved. These shapes shift over hours and days, but always with elegance, always with smooth transitions. Smooth transitions lead the mind toward softer thoughts. Many spacecraft have watched Venus from afar, observing the movement of clouds, the heat from the surface, the changing pattern of light reflecting off the atmosphere. Each view adds another layer to our understanding, yet the heart of the planet remains mostly hidden. In that hiddenness, Venus teaches another quiet truth. Not everything needs to be fully seen to be appreciated. Some beauties remain veiled, and the veil itself becomes part. The thick atmosphere acts like insulation, holding heat and pressure in place. It is a world that wraps itself in its own presence, keeping its motions slow, smoothing its transitions. Even volcanic eruptions, if they occur, must rise through dense air before reaching the upper layers. Their effects softened by the weight above. Above all, Venus holds its own pace, while Earth spins quickly, creating days that pass in a rush. Venus turns leisurely, as though reminding the solar system that not all rotations need to match. There is space for diversity in how worlds move, and space for slowness in the heart of even the hottest worlds. In that space for slowness, the listener finds room to release tension. Imagine rising slowly now, drifting upward through the heavy layers, feeling the pressure lighten as you ascend. The air becomes thinner, the temperature cooler, the clouds brighter. Wind guides your course, carrying you in smooth arcs around the planet. When you break through the uppermost layers, the darkness of space opens once more, the sun shining above the haze in a bright, gentle glow. Below, Venus's silhouette is soft, an orb wrapped in mist. Its golden light reflects outward, joining the sun's rays in scattering across space. Seen from afar, the planet resembles a lantern of quiet warmth, drifting through the void with a steady glow. It does not pulse or flicker. It shines evenly, like a candle shielded from wind. That shielded glow stays with you as the orbit pulls you onward. The golden haze recedes beneath you, and the empty stretch between worlds opens again, wide, patient, and calm. The soft blue of the next planet appears far ahead, shimmering like a gentle beacon, and as we rise above the golden haze, a gentle blue world waits just ahead, ready to open its calm oceans and quiet forests to this drifting journey through the night far ahead. Through the soft openness between planets, a blue glow begins to form. It is faint at first, a small shimmer against the dark. But as we drift closer, the glow widens into gentle swirls of cloud, calm and white, circling a sphere painted in blues, greens, browns, and soft silver lights. Earth turns slowly before us, wrapped in the delicate threads of its atmosphere, breathing in quiet rhythms that stretch from ocean depths to mountain peaks. Earth is familiar, yet seen from this drifting vantage, it becomes something new, a living presence rather than a location, a world that inhales sunlight and exhales heat, shaping weather and seasons through subtle dances of air and water. Its magnetic field rises from deep inside like a protective aura, deflecting particles from the sun and guiding charged winds along invisible pathways. These field lines curve outward and inward, creating a cocoon around the planet, a safe envelope that hums softly in the silence of space. That protective hum embraces everything below, from cloud tops to forest floors, drifting closer. The colors of Earth sharpen. Oceans stretch across most of the surface, dark blue where the water is deep, turquoise where sunlight touches the shallows. The sea moves in rolling, slow-moving currents, carrying warmth and memory across the globe. These currents form patterns that mirror great loops in the sky, warm waters rising, cool waters descending, a gentle exchange that shapes climates and seasons with patient continuity where oceans meet land. Coastlines curve like the edges of sleeping blankets. Waves break in quiet pulses, one after another, always returning. Sand smooths itself beneath the rhythm of tides, shifting grains that once belonged to mountains, then rivers, then shorelines. Everything on Earth is part of a longer cycle, where nothing is truly lost, only changed, softened, redistributed, along the continents. Forests breathe in harmony with the air above them. Leaves capture sunlight, converting its energy into sugars and oxygen in a slow, continuous process that sustains life across ecosystems. The wind moves through branches with a rustling whisper, a soft, layered sound that reminds the listener of calm afternoons beneath tall trees. Rustling whispers drift into the mind as reminders of how existence can feel gentle above these forests. Clouds form in drifting clusters, shaped by rising warm air that meets cooler currents. They stretch across the sky like cotton pulled thin, gliding slowly over mountains, plains, and oceans. Some clouds gather moisture and release it in rain that falls soft or strong, nourishing soils and filling rivers. Others drift silently, offering shade and little else from space. Clouds appear as soft spirals and long streaks, tracing the movements of the wind. They change shape continuously, but never abruptly. Everything is gradual. Everything moves with patient ease. Even storms, large and swirling, follow predictable paths born from the meeting of warm and cool air. Their motion, though powerful, takes place over hours and days, not moments. The world teaches patience through every movement. Earth's magnetic field shelters the atmosphere from being stripped away by the solar wind. This field is born in the molten outer core, where liquid iron moves in enormous, looping currents, generating a magnetic dynamo that extends far beyond the surface. The field lines curve outward like petals, forming a structure that resembles a soft, luminous blossom. When seen under the right instruments, a luminous blossom surrounds the world, steady and protective. Within this swirling, shielding field, the atmosphere flows in layers. Near the surface, air is thick enough to breathe, enriched by plant life and ocean plankton. Higher up, the air thins and becomes colder, forming stratified zones where winds move in elegant, quiet streams. Higher still, atoms and molecules dance with particles from space, creating glowing ribbons of aurora near the poles. Auroras shimmer like pale curtains of light, drifting across the night sky in greens, pinks, and quiet blues. They move silently, but the imagination can almost hear a soft, rippling sound in the mind, a gentle fluttering, like silk stirred by a delicate breeze. They are born when charged particles follow magnetic lines toward the poles and collide with molecules in the atmosphere. The result is light born from contact, from invisible interactions. From the quiet meeting of sun and earth, light born from contact creates beauty. Even in darkness, we drift down toward the landscapes shaped by these atmospheric layers. There are mountains that rise like frozen waves, their peaks sharp or rounded depending on age and geology. Snow rests on high ridges, melting in slow trickles that feed rivers winding through valleys. These rivers carve paths over centuries, splitting and merging as they find the easiest routes downward. The sound of flowing water, though unheard from space, feels familiar, like a distant memory of calm afternoons. There are deserts where wind moves grains of sand into long, crescent-shaped dunes. These dunes shift gradually, though the process is almost imperceptible to the human eye, a quiet migration of the landscape itself. At dawn and dusk, the sand glows in soft pinks and golds, while the air cools and settles near the ground. The desert may seem empty, but it holds its own serenity, a kind of spacious stillness that mirrors the wider universe. In spacious stillness, the heart relaxes its grip. Earth's surface is constantly reshaped by tectonic processes. Though the motion of plates is slow and gentle when measured on human timescales, continents drift a few centimeters each year, guided by heat rising from the mantle. Mountains rise as plates collide, while rifts widen where plates pull apart. These shifts are not chaotic. They are steady, ancient motions that have sculpted the world into its present form. Volcanoes build new land, releasing heat from deep within. Many rise underwater, forming ridges where lava cools into dark rock. Others stand tall on land, shaped by repeated eruptions over long periods. Even in their dormant phases, they are part of Earth's pulse, a reminder that the planet is alive inside, glowing with slow-moving magma and persistent heat. Persistent heat moves through rock, the way thoughts move through a resting mind, slowly, quietly, with purpose, hidden far below the surface. We drift now over forests that change with the seasons. In spring, leaves unfurl in pale greens, delicate and thin. In summer, they deepen in color, layering themselves into a canopy that hums with life. In autumn, they turn amber, crimson, and gold, softening into a final burst of color before falling. Winter brings bare branches and quiet snowfall, each flake drifting in silence to the ground. Seasonal cycles remind us that change can be gentle, predictable, and comforting. Over the oceans, waves rise and fall with the pull of the moon. These tides are part of Earth's deeper connection to its companion in orbit, a long and steady bond that stretches the oceans and shapes coastal life. The water responds to the moon's gravity with rhythmic precision, moving in and out, swelling and receding in a calm cycle that has continued since long before humans walked on land. Imagine listening to that distant tide now, a long breath inward, a long breath outward, repeating without strain. Like the ocean, the mind can follow that rhythm, settling into its own natural pace. Thought, breath, and quiet attention move in and out of awareness with a smoothness that does not need to be controlled. You can let your breath follow the slow turning of this world. Soft and steady, Earth is home to an astonishing diversity of life. Grasses bending in the wind, birds gliding in arcs across the sky, whales traveling through deep blue corridors, tiny organisms drifting in warm pools. Life exists from the highest mountain lakes to the deepest ocean trenches, each environment shaped by temperature, pressure, chemistry, and light. But here, in this quiet exploration, we focus not on the energy of life, but on its peaceful moments, the stillness at dawn in a forest, the hush of snowfall on a quiet street, the distant rumble of waves on a rocky shore. These are the sounds that soothe even when unheard, the memories that calm even when distant. Every person alive carries some echo of Earth's quiet places within them. These echoes remind us that rest is natural, and quiet is part of what it means to be alive. The atmosphere of Earth creates gentle gradients of color as sunlight passes through it. At sunrise and sunset, long wavelengths of red and orange scatter across the sky, painting the horizon in warm tones. During the day, shorter blue wavelengths scatter more widely, giving the sky its familiar hue. At night, the sky darkens into deep black, dotted with stars and sometimes brushed by faint bands of the Milky Way. Nighttime on Earth holds its own forms of calm, the chirping of distant insects, the whisper of trees moving with the breeze, the dim light of the moon casting soft silver over land and water. Even storms at night, though loud, have rhythms that soothe some listeners, the pattern of rain, the rolling rise and fall of thunder. In these sounds, there is continuity, not chaos. Continuity across landscapes and seasons invites the mind to let go. Earth's magnetic field, interacting with solar wind, also forms a bow shock and long tail behind the planet, shaping the flow of charged particles in ways that are invisible to our eyes but crucial to the planet's protection. This unseen shield is part of why life thrives here. It keeps harmful particles at bay and directs some toward the poles, where they create auroras, glowing reminders of the sun's presence. Even during long winter nights, auroras ripple across polar skies like gentle brushstrokes of light. Greens shimmer near the horizon, while pinks and purples flicker higher, all moving in soft, irregular patterns shaped by magnetic fields and changing particle flows. These lights resemble slow-moving curtains, bending and shifting with a grace that feels almost alive. Watching them can bring a deep sense of calm, a reminder that beauty emerges from the meeting of forces we cannot see. Beauty emerges from quiet interactions, just as peace emerges from quiet breaths. The continents below hold memories of ancient waterways, shifting climates, and migrating species. Mountain ranges once as tall as the Himalayas have been worn down into gentle hills. Rivers that once flooded vast plains now follow narrower routes. Ice sheets have advanced and retreated, carving valleys and reshaping coastlines. Over millions of years, Earth has never stood still. Yet the changes occur on timescales that allow life to adapt, flourish, pause, and flourish again. This slow adaptability is mirrored in our own lives, in the way humans move through seasons of energy and rest. Just as forests cycle through growth and decay, bodies cycle through wakefulness and sleep. Just as oceans carry heat across the globe, people carry memories and lessons across time. The planet's rhythms exist in us, even when unnoticed. Drifting above the world now, we see how everything connects: land to sea, sea to sky, sky to magnetic field to solar wind. Nothing is isolated. Everything participates in a shared dance of energy and motion, always shifting, always settling. Earth holds all of these processes in balance, maintaining the conditions for life with a quiet, persistent grace. Quiet, persistent grace guides everything beneath our drifting view as we rise once more into the dark of space. Earth's blue glow softens. The white swirls of clouds become more delicate. Oceans turn into deep patches of calm color. The land fades into gentle green and brown shapes beneath the atmosphere. From a distance, the world appears peaceful, round, and whole, a fragile sphere wrapped in light and shadow. We drift farther, following the calm pull of this night's journey. The moon waits ahead, a pale companion, reflecting Earth's light back across the void. Its surface holds its own quiet stories, etched in dust and stone. The distance between Earth and Moon is vast, yet the two worlds remain connected through gravity, tides, and long shared history. And from this familiar blue glow, we drift softly toward the moon, where quiet shadows wait to welcome us into their gentle, soundless light. The Earth recedes behind us in a calm blue glow, its swirling clouds and drifting oceans slowly shrinking into a gentle sphere wrapped in soft light. Ahead, the moon rises in pale stillness, suspended against the dark like a quiet lantern carved from stone. It does not shine by its own power. Its light is borrowed, reflecting the sun's glow in silver tones that fall over valleys, ridges, and ancient plains. Even from afar, that soft reflection feels soothing, a steady glow that has guided tides, marked calendars, and comforted eyes since long before human stories began. As we drift closer, the moon's details emerge with slow, careful clarity. Craters spread out across the surface like petals frozen in gray rock, each one shaped by impacts that happened in the distant past. Some are small and sharp-edged, others wide and gentle in their curves, softened by time. Light glances off their rims, casting shadows that stretch far across the ground. In these long shadows, a quiet beauty settles, a stillness deeper than silence, a stillness deeper than silence holds the moon in its ancient embrace. The ground is covered in fine dust called regolith, made from rock shattered over billions of years. The grains are soft-looking but sharp-edged, formed by micrometeorites hitting the surface at high speeds. They gather in thin layers, shifting only when new dust falls, or when the moon's faint quakes, moonquakes, send subtle vibrations through the crust. These quakes are gentle compared to Earth's tremors, caused not by shifting plates, but by the slow cooling and shrinking of the lunar interior, or by the deep pull of Earth's gravity. Even the quakes here feel unhurried, as though the moon sighs rather than shakes. There is no atmosphere to carry sound. If you stood on the surface, everything around you would be utterly silent. No wind to stir the dust, no rustle of leaves, no distant call of animals. Only the steady rhythm of your own breath would remind you that you are alive. Even light behaves differently here. Without air to scatter it, shadows are sharper and sunlight falls in pure, unfiltered brightness. Yet, despite this starkness, the moon feels gentle. Its softness comes not from its environment, but from the way it has watched Earth through every age, reflecting light in cycles that shape the rhythms of life. The waxing and waning phases, the pull on the tides, the glow of full moons over calm seas. These patterns create a kind of celestial heartbeat, a slow pulse between Earth and its companion. A slow pulse between Earth and its companion settles into the mind like a soothing tide. The moon's gravitational pull tugs at Earth's oceans, drawing water outward and shaping tides that rise and fall in dependable cycles. Each tide carries with it a quiet comfort, a reminder that even the vast ocean responds to subtle, distant forces with grace. The moon and Earth remain locked in a gravitational embrace, each influencing the other. Earth causes the moon to show the same face at all times, keeping one hemisphere turned toward its home world. The moon, in turn, pulls on Earth's crust and seas, creating rhythms that touch every coastline. This tidal connection is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle, slow, and steady, the kind of influence that feels like a long, gentle breath drawn across the centuries. Even now, as we drift above the moon's surface, the Earth's pull tugs lightly on the ground beneath us, shaping the tides not only in seawater, but in rock itself. Rock, too, responds to gravity's quiet invitation. The moon is slowly drifting away from Earth, growing more distant by roughly a few centimeters each year. This gentle separation has been happening for millions of years and will continue for millions more. Over long stretches of time, the distance between Earth and moon changes the length of Earth's day, slows our planet's rotation, and alters the shape of future tides. The process is so slow that no one notices it in daily life. It is like watching a tree grow. The change is invisible, moment to moment, yet undeniable when seen across ages. This drift, barely perceptible, becomes a symbol of calm change. Nothing sudden, nothing forced, just a natural unfolding across time. A natural unfolding across time allows the mind to loosen its grip on immediacy. As we drift lower, we pass over the lunar Maria dark plains formed by ancient volcanic eruptions. These smooth regions once flowed with molten rock, but now they lie still under the soft glow of reflected sunlight. Their darker tone contrasts with the lighter highlands, as though the moon carries shadows and light in perfect balance. The Maria hold memories of internal heat, of a time when the moon's core was more active, shaping the surface with lava flows that spread like quiet ink across the basins in the highlands. Craters overlap like pages in a long geological story. Some are so old that their rims have softened into gentle arcs. Others appear crisp, their features well preserved in the perpetual stillness. One of the most striking is Tycho, with bright rays of ejected material stretching outward like faint spokes of silver dust. These rays extend for hundreds of miles, a testament to the force of an impact long past. Yet here, too, the result is quiet beauty, a starburst pattern frozen in stone. Frozen patterns tell stories without sound, inviting calm through their stillness. We drift across the terminator, the line dividing lunar day and night. Here, shadows stretch longest and most dramatically, carving deep contrasts into the landscape. The sun hovers low above the horizon, casting golden lines across ridges and crater floors. The light moves slowly, almost imperceptibly, because the moon takes so long to rotate. Sunrise and sunset here can last for hours, spreading warmth in thick, gradual waves. If you stood in that slow sunrise, you would feel the cold rock beneath your feet begin to warm, but only slightly. The airless environment prevents heat from spreading quickly. Light would fall in bright, unsoftened beams. Above you, the sky would remain black, sprinkled with stars that shine even in daylight. The contrast, bright ground, dark sky, creates a still, surreal beauty. A still, surreal beauty settles like dust on quiet thoughts as we glide toward the lunar north. The far side becomes visible, a region few saw until spacecraft revealed it mid-20th century. This far side bears more craters, fewer Maria, and terrain that feels more ancient. Its features rise and fall in complex patterns, shaped by time rather than weather. Some mountains climb steeply, worn only by impacts and by the slow shifting of the crust. Though the far side is often called dark, it is not truly without sunlight. It receives as much light as the near side, but remains turned away from Earth, hidden from view. In that hiddenness, it holds a quiet independence. It is part of the moon, yet remains unseen by the eyes of our ancestors. A private landscape wrapped in silence. A private landscape wrapped in silence mirrors the hidden corners of every mind beneath the surface. The moon is colder than Earth, its small size unable to trap heat for long periods. A faint mantle surrounds a partially cooled core. Over time, as heat escaped, the crust contracted, forming cliffs and ridges that are still visible. These features, though static now, tell of a world gradually settling, cooling, becoming more still with each passing epoch. We drift lower toward the lunar poles, where deep craters hold permanent shadows. Some of these regions have not seen sunlight for billions of years. Temperatures there are among the coldest in the solar system, preserving deposits of ice that may one day help future explorers. These shadowed pockets remain untouched, places of unbroken night where frost forms patterns on stone dot. Frost, forming in deep shadows, adds a soft texture to the moon's quiet face. The moon has no weather in the earthly sense. No rain falls, no wind blows. Yet, over long stretches of time, solar radiation gradually changes the color of surface materials, darkening them in a process called space weathering. Even this is slow, a gentle alteration, atom by atom, over thousands of years. The world transforms, but only in the faintest of increments. This slowness becomes part of the moon's identity. It does not rush. It does not age quickly. It merely holds its place in orbit, turning with a calm that has guided life on Earth since the beginning. Its bright phases comfort night travelers. Its cycles shape biological rhythms. Its pull moves oceans. Its presence shifts tides in rock and water alike in its presence. Everything moves with measured grace. Life on Earth once used the moon as a calendar. Phases marked the timing of ceremonies, planting seasons. Even now, people watch it rise and set, sensing something timeless in its glow. Poets, artists, navigators, all have looked to the moon and felt a deep, steadying quiet. There is something universal in the way it hangs in the sky, constant yet always changing, bright yet shaped by shadow. As we float above its surface now, the moon feels close enough to touch, though its dust, stone, and silence remain untouched by breeze or water. The sharp lines of its features soften in the diffuse light. The ground seems to hold its breath. Everything appears balanced, dark and light, warmth and cold, stillness and ancient activity. That balance offers a place for burdens to fall away. Gently and without strain, we rise once more, leaving behind the craters and plains, climbing above the gray surface until the moon becomes a sphere beneath us, bright on one side, shadowed on the other. The earth glows far away, blue and calm. The sun lights the moon's arc in pale silver. The orbit draws us outward, carrying us toward the next world in this night's drifting journey. And in the soft pull of moonlit tides, we drift gently toward a quiet red horizon, where a silent desert waits beneath the dim embrace of ancient winds. Mars appears ahead as a muted ember in the darkness, a world shaped by ancient rivers and long-vanished seas, a place where rust-red sands stretch across plains that once echoed with the faint murmur of flowing water. As we drift toward it, the colors shift in slow gradients, amber to rose, rose to muted ochre, until the planet fills our vision with a quiet, steady presence. The light that reaches it from the sun is softer now, spread thin across the widening distance, giving the world a dust-kissed glow that seems to rise from within. On this world, silence has weight, and stillness has age. Mars is small compared to Earth, but its landscapes unfold with vast, open calm. The great shield volcanoes of the Tharsis region rise like islands from broad plains, their slopes so gentle and expansive that they seem to blend into the horizon rather than break it. Olympus Mons, the tallest of them, rises calmly into the thin atmosphere, its summit stretching high above surrounding plains, yet lacking any sense of abruptness. The slopes climb gradually, as though the volcano grew not in explosive bursts, but in slow, steady layers of cooled lava. Beneath the thin light, the mountain seems peaceful, a soft mound carved by time rather than violence. Beneath the soft mound of ancient stone, silence gathers like dust. The air here is thin, made mostly of carbon dioxide, carrying only a fraction of Earth's pressure. It moves quietly, unable to create the kind of gusts familiar on Earth. Instead, it shifts across the surface in long, low breaths. These winds can carry dust high into the atmosphere, creating global storms that encircle the planet. Yet the movement of the air itself feels delicate. Fine particles lift easily, swirling into hazy veils that brush across the plains in slow, sweeping motions. Even in storms, the atmosphere whispers rather than roars from the vantage of drifting above the surface. The sands below appear as an endless canvas of softly shifting textures. Dunes rise in smooth arcs, sculpted by wind that moves over decades rather than hours. Some dunes resemble waves caught in mid-crest, frozen in golden stillness. Others form long parallel ridges, glowing faintly where sunlight touches their edges. In the early morning or late afternoon, when the sun rests low on the horizon, shadows stretch in long, quiet ribbons over these dunes, creating patterns that look like ancient script written across the surface. Within these patterns, a sense of deep calm settles on the mind. Quiet and grounding, Mars carries the memory of water within its valleys, canyons, and outflow channels. The largest canyon system, Valles Marineris, opens like a vast wound across the equator. But when seen gently, it becomes a serene passageway, carved not by trauma, but by long processes of erosion, tectonic stretching, and ancient flows. Its cliffs rise sharply in some places, yet lie softened in others, shaped by landslides and dust deposition. The canyon stretches for thousands of kilometers, but from above, it appears to breathe with the planet, expanding and narrowing like the rhythm of a slow exhale. Slow exhale drifts across the mind as this quiet world reveals its layers. Evidence of ancient riverbeds lies scattered across the surface, winding channels etched into the ground, branching like veins of memory. These networks trace paths where water once flowed, carrying sediment and shaping the landscape. In some regions, deltas remain visible, their fan-like shapes revealing where streams once entered larger bodies of water. On the floors of old craters, clay deposits hint at long-standing lakes that reflected a young sun in gentle ripples, now frozen into stone. Yet water is not entirely absent today. At the poles, bright caps of ice lie still and cold, layered with carbon dioxide frost in winter and shrinking gently in summer. These caps gleam under pale light, their edges softened by dust that settles during storms. Beneath the surface, radar instruments have detected signs of buried ice sheets, preserved under layers of regolith. In certain seasons, thin wisps of cloud form in the atmosphere, creating delicate streaks of white that drift above volcanic rises and canyon edges. Delicate streaks of white drift over silence, offering a reminder that change can be subtle. On some mornings, when the angle of sunlight is just right, frost forms on rocks and dust grains near the equator. It melts quickly as the day warms, leaving behind only a slight darkening of the soil. Though ephemeral, these frosts are gentle markers of a world still capable of shifting, still responsive to the sun, still holding thin threads of activity in its quiet heart. The temperature swings on Mars are broad, cooling quickly in the thin air after sunset. Days can be warm enough for a gentle heat to touch the rocks, but nights are cold and crystalline, pulling warmth from the ground in deep, slow waves. The surface radiates its heat back into space without hesitation, and the air above remains too sparse to hold it close. These fluctuations create a kind of breathing sensation across the planet, warmth rising, fading, returning again. Within this rising and fading, the thoughts soften into a gentle calm. Dust storms on Mars are one of its most iconic phenomena, yet even they have a quiet nature when viewed from afar. The storms build gradually, lifting fine particles into the air, turning the sky a muted orange. As the storm grows, visibility diminishes, and light takes on a soft, diffused quality. Shadows disappear, colors flatten, the world becomes a single, warm tint of amber and red. These storms can persist for weeks, but they settle just as slowly, allowing dust to fall back onto the surface in thin, even coats. As the dust settles, the world regains its gentle, muted clarity. Rovers exploring the surface have shown how the landscape looks from ground level. Rocks scattered across plains, small dunes brushing against rover wheels, distant hills rising under a pale salmon sky. The soundscape, if one could hear it, would be nearly empty. The air is too thin for rich sound. At most, a faint whisper of wind might brush across machinery, carrying only the slightest texture of motion. Machinery on Mars moves with deliberate slowness. Rovers advance centimeter by centimeter, wheels pressing softly into dust, instruments unfolding with measured precision. Their cameras capture sunsets that glow in soft blue hues, a striking reversal of Earth's palette here. The thinner atmosphere scatters blue light more effectively near the sun, creating a gentle halo as dusk settles. The horizon dims slowly, leaving only the faintest cobalt glow before darkness returns. Darkness returns with a softness that calms the inner world at night. The sky above Mars is clear and deep, strewn with stars that shine sharply through the thin air. Phobos and Deimos, the planet's small moons, drift across the sky in quiet arcs. Phobos orbits so close that it moves swiftly overhead, rising and setting multiple times in a single Martian day. Its passage would be silent and quick, like a shadow passing over a sleeping landscape. Deimos moves more slowly, its pale shape drifting like a soft ember against the dark. These moons are remnants of captured asteroids, their surfaces irregular and pitted. They reflect little light, yet their presence offers companionship to the planet, a pair of quiet satellites tracing paths shaped by gravity's gentle mathematics. Gentle mathematics guide every motion in this quiet desert of stone and sand. The soil beneath the surface holds chemicals shaped by ultraviolet light and oxidation. Iron-rich minerals give Mars its red color, a warm tone that spreads across the planet like a long-settled blush. Beneath this layer, sediments lie in quiet stacks, each layer capturing a fragment of the planet's ancient climate. Dust devils sometimes lift into twisting columns, dancing across plains with slow, spiraling grace. They move lightly, leaving delicate trails on the surface. These trails crisscross the ground like faint signatures of passing breezes. Deep beneath the crust, heat lingers faintly, perhaps enough to keep pockets of water in liquid form in some regions. Though no flowing water exists at the surface today, the potential for occasional brines remains, shaped by salts that lower the freezing point of water. These tiny, transient trickles would be too small to see from orbit, but their possibility suggests that Mars still holds quiet movement in unexpected places. Quiet movement in unexpected places reminds us that stillness is never absolute. As we drift above the planet, the tallest volcanoes rise again into view. Arsia Mons, Pavonis Mons, Ascraeus Mons, each a gentle giant whose base spans hundreds of kilometers. Their flanks are covered in lava flows that spread outward like layers of soft fabric, overlapping in long, gentle arcs. From orbit, they appear as calm, broad domes rising above the plains. Their summits flattened by collapsed calderas near the Tharsis region. The landscape contains long rift valleys and fractures, shaped by the weight of these massive volcanoes on the crust. These tectonic features stretch for hundreds of kilometers, forming quiet lines across the surface. While the processes that formed them occurred long ago, their presence remains a reminder of Mars's once active heart. Mars's heart once beat more strongly, warming its interior, shaping its surface. Farther north, the polar regions reveal spiraling layers of ice, dust, and frost. These caps grow and shrink with the seasons, their boundaries shifting gently in response to sunlight. The northern cap glows bright under the sun, while the southern cap holds more deposits of carbon dioxide, ice. Each layer records climate cycles, preserving the stories of past winds, temperatures, and atmospheric changes. The spiral patterns resemble slow whirls of frozen breath, calming and intricate as the seasons turn on Mars. The tilt of its axis brings changes that echo Earth's, though the cycles are gentler in appearance. Frost spreads across the surface in winter, shining faintly in dawn light. In spring, it recedes, revealing rock and soil. Dust storms may come and go. Temperatures rise and fall with patient regularity. Even without oceans or thick air, the planet responds to sunlight in rhythms that feel familiar, a reminder that even barren worlds have seasons. Even barren worlds have seasons. And seasons bring their own quiet poetry. Earth and Mars share similarities in day length. A Martian sol is only slightly longer than an Earth day, allowing rovers to measure time in cycles that feel almost human. This similarity, though small, creates a sense of kinship to worlds turning with rhythms, separated by distance but connected by shared motion threads through every world in the solar system, linking them through gravity and sunlight in the present era. Mars remains a desert of cold air and dust, but its landscapes carry memories of warmth. River channels cut deep into the ground. Delta formations curve outward. Sedimentary layers record ancient lakes that dried slowly under a thinning atmosphere. These features create a picture of a world that once felt more alive, more fluid, more vibrant with the movement of water. Yet even in its dryness, Mars offers a kind of peace. Its silence is not emptiness, but rest. Its stillness is not absence, but continuation. It has become a world reduced to essentials: rock, dust, sky, and in that reduction lies clarity. In that clarity, a deep calm settles over the drifting mind. Rovers continue their quiet work on the surface, measuring weather patterns, analyzing rocks, tracing the chemical signatures of ancient water. They move slowly, stopping often to study the textures and tones of the ground. Their wheels leave tracks that will remain for years, perhaps decades, before dust gradually fills them in. These tracks form gentle reminders of exploration carried out with patience and care. Patience and care shape every step taken across this silent desert as we rise once more above the surface. Mars becomes a sphere again, red and soft-edged, glowing under thin sunlight. The canyons, volcanoes, and plains blend into patterns of shadow and light. The thin atmosphere creates a faint halo at the edge of the planet, a soft line where sky meets space. It is a world preserved in quiet, carried in slow rotation, held in the embrace of ancient memory. From this perspective, Mars feels gentle, even soothing. Despite its cold and dryness, its storms and dust, it holds a deep serenity. Its landscapes ask nothing, demand nothing. They simply exist, shaped by time and softened by distance. And from the quiet red sands, we drift toward the vast clouds of a world far larger, where soft hues and swirling storms wait beyond the widening darkness. Jupiter rises ahead like a vast, softly glowing tapestry of muted creams, gentle ambers, and pale golds. Its stripes, swirling in quiet bands, spread across a world so enormous that it holds more volume than all the other planets combined. Yet despite this immensity, its presence feels calm from a distance, not overwhelming, not fierce, but slow-moving and deeply settled, like the breath of an ancient, sleeping giant. The light that touches it bends through layers of atmosphere, giving the planet a soft, luminous halo that brightens and dims as we approach. The outermost clouds move in long, fluid patterns, wrapping around Jupiter in smooth, alternating belts. These belts are shaped by soft, high-altitude winds that circle the planet in opposite directions. Where they meet, subtle boundaries form, creating waves and curls of atmosphere that drift in broad arcs. From far above, it looks as though the entire planet is breathing, bands tightening, relaxing, shifting in patient sync, breathing in patient sync. The giant world settles into its timeless motion. Jupiter's atmosphere is made of hydrogen and helium, gases that flow differently from air on Earth. They create a world without solid ground, where layers blend into one another without sharp edges. High in the atmosphere, ammonia clouds form pale whorls of white. Deeper down are clouds made of ammonium hydrosulfide, glowing in muted tans and browns. Beneath those are layers of water, clouds, whose darker tones add subtle depth to the planet's bands. Each layer moves with its own soft rhythm, shaping the colors and curves seen from above, where the bands drift past each other. Storms form not violent explosions, but slow, spiraling patterns of rising and sinking gas. Some storms last for days, others for centuries. Their edges curl like brushstrokes painted across an endless sky. Warm clouds rise gently, cool clouds sink, and the entire atmosphere becomes a soft, layered symphony of motion. A soft, layered symphony of motion settles the mind and loosens its grip. Deeper within Jupiter's clouds lies the great red spot, a vast storm larger than Earth, though its size is immense. Its presence feels calm from afar, a patient oval rotating slowly counterclockwise, carrying ancient winds that have circled for centuries. The spot's color shifts with time, fading and brightening, turning from brick red to soft coral. Nothing about it feels hurried. It is a storm shaped by deep currents, held in place by the planet's rotating bands, moving at a pace that echoes the slow pulse of the giant world itself. The edges of the great red spot form waves that stretch outward into neighboring clouds, blending color and motion. Pale filaments curve softly around it, drawn into its orbit like threads into a loom. The storm's interior is dense with rising gases, but there is no roar here, no thunder in this telling. Only steady movement, continuous and slow, continuous and slow. The motions of Jupiter fall into a natural rhythm. Lightning flashes occasionally within the deeper clouds, illuminating water-rich regions below thick layers of gas. These flashes are brighter than lightning on Earth, but they flicker softly through the haze, creating muted blooms of light that fade quickly into surrounding darkness. Thunder does not echo through the atmosphere as it would on Earth. Instead, vibrations dissipate before they can rise to higher layers. Storms here are immense but soundless, an orchestra without audible notes, playing only through motion. Toward the poles, the bands give way to intricate, swirling patterns, cyclones arranged in geometric clusters, circling one another like dancers in a slow, endless waltz. Recent observations revealed that these polar storms are stable, long-lived, and arranged in near-perfect symmetry. At the North Pole, a central cyclone sits at the center of 8 others, each one spinning with calm persistence. At the South Pole, a similar structure exists, but with fewer storms, arranged in gentle spirals. These polar formations give Jupiter a sense of ordered beauty, as though mathematics itself shaped the winds, as though mathematics itself shaped the winds. The world turns in graceful patterns. Beneath the visible clouds lies a layer where hydrogen becomes compressed by pressure into a thick, warm fluid. Deeper still, hydrogen transitions into metallic form, a shimmering, electrically conductive sea that drifts around the core. This metallic hydrogen generates Jupiter's immense magnetic field, a vast protective sphere that extends millions of kilometers into space. It traps charged particles, shapes radiation belts, and guides streams of plasma from Jupiter's moons. Yet, from a distance, this magnetic field feels like a faint glow, a soft, invisible shell humming around the planet. It forms auroras near the poles, glowing in shades of violet and blue. These auroras are brighter and more energetic than Earth's. But when viewed from afar, they resemble delicate rings of light, swirling gently as plasma follows magnetic lines into the atmosphere. Delicate rings of light shimmer at the poles, marking the quiet touch of unseen forces. Jupiter's moons orbit in graceful arcs around the planet, each one carrying its own quiet story. The innermost Io is volcanic, with plumes rising high above its surface. Yet even its activity feels distant and muted when seen from here. Small flashes of movement on a moon embraced by Jupiter's gravity. Europa, with its smooth, icy shell, reflects sunlight in soft, blue-white tones. Beneath its crust lies a global ocean, warmed by tidal flexing, where liquid water drifts in dark, quiet currents that may host forms of life. Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system, holds a magnetic field of its own, creating a miniature magnetosphere within Jupiter's greater one. Its surface is a patchwork of dark, ancient plains and bright, grooved regions, each shaped by the movement of ice and rock over geological time. Callisto, farthest of the major moons, is a world of ancient craters softened by frost. A quiet place untouched by recent geological activity. A quiet place untouched by recent change offers calm to the drifting mind between the orbits of these moons. Faint rings circled Jupiter, thin dust-filled bands, nearly invisible in most light. They are not bright like Saturn's rings. Instead, they resemble soft halos, scattering light in faint glimmers. Dust in the rings comes from micrometeor impacts on small inner moons, replenished continuously but gently. The rings drift around the planet like delicate brushstrokes in the dark. Delicate brushstrokes in the dark add depth to the planet's quiet form as we drift closer. The bands of Jupiter reveal finer details, small storms called barges, elongated clouds called festoons, and waves that ripple along boundaries between jet streams. Each feature moves with its own pace, shaped by temperature and pressure differences that play out in slow, elegant choreography. Nothing here is still, yet nothing feels rushed. Even the fastest winds, which can exceed hundreds of kilometers per hour, do not appear chaotic from above. They move like wide rivers of air, flowing in curved patterns that follow the planet's rotation at certain angles. Sunlight reflects off high-altitude ammonia crystals, creating a faint pearlescent sheen on the cloud tops. This sheen shifts gently as clouds rise and fall, giving the impression of soft breathing beneath the atmosphere. The giant planet inhales heat from the sun and from its own interior, then exhales it in long waves that radiate outward, Warmth softens into silence as day turns to night on the giant world. The cloud tops darken into deep hues, charcoal, indigo, muted brown. Lighting in the upper atmosphere changes subtly with the sun's angle. Bands that were bright become shadowed. Storms that were sharp-edged soften. The atmosphere cools slightly, though the planet retains most of its heat from its own inner processes. This internally generated warmth rises slowly, creating convection currents that stir the atmosphere from below. Over time, these rising plumes form new clouds, shaping new patterns that join the quiet dance of belts and storms. Jupiter's weather, though immense, is steady in its cycles, repeating in ways that bring comfort through predictability. comfort through predictability, allows tension to melt into gentler thoughts. Beneath the cloud layers, the pressure increases gradually. Colors deepen into reds and browns, then fade into darker tones where sunlight cannot reach. Even deeper, the atmosphere becomes warm and dense, transitioning into the fluid layers where hydrogen takes on metallic properties. Though invisible, this transformation adds a deeper resonance to the planet's nature, a world whose heart is not solid rock, but a vast, shimmering sea of exotic matter. A vast, shimmering sea moves in silence beneath the swirling clouds. Jupiter's magnetic field interacts with the solar wind, forming a bowshock far ahead of the planet and a long tail that stretches behind it. This tail extends deep into the outer solar system, capturing charged particles and guiding them in arcs that mirror the curvature of the planet's movement. The magnetic field shapes the regions around Jupiter in subtle ways, altering the paths of dust grains, influencing interactions between moons, and controlling the glow of auroras. Even in these distant interactions, the pace remains slow, a gentle drift of energy in space. From high above, Jupiter appears serene. The bands blend into gentle gradients. The great red spot turns like a slow, thoughtful eye. The polar storms move in quiet spirals. Everything is in motion, yet everything feels settled. The giant planet does not rush through space. It glides along its orbit with deep, unshakable calm, drawing its moons with it in elegant paths. In this calm, the mind finds a stillness that mirrors the giant's peaceful rotation as we drift away. Jupiter's shape softens into the distance. The bands blur into pale stripes. The storm becomes a faint oval. The moons fall into their quiet arcs. The planet shrinks slowly, returning to its place as a glowing world hanging in the darkness, immense, gentle, and endlessly patient. And from Jupiter's deep spirals, we drift toward the soft glow of circling rings, where another world waits in shimmering calm. Saturn rises ahead like a quiet vision suspended in the dark, a world wrapped in pale gold light and encircled by rings so delicate they seem almost painted onto the sky. As we drift closer, the rings brighten into thin arcs of silver and ice, stretching outward in long, graceful curves that shimmer softly under the distant sun. Saturn itself rotates with a calm rhythm, its cloud bands muted and gentle, blending into one another like layers of soft, golden fabric. There is no sharpness here, only smooth transitions, fluid lines, and colors that drift from cream to honey, from pale ochre to quiet gray. Quiet gray settles along its upper atmosphere, forming subtle patterns shaped by cold winds. The rings appear solid from afar, but as we approach, their true nature reveals itself. Countless fragments of ice and dust, each no larger than a boulder or as small as a grain of sand, all circling Saturn in precise, unbroken paths. These particles reflect sunlight in shimmering glints, turning the rings into bands of light that ripple gently with every shift in angle. The space between particles is vast, yet they move together like a single structure, forming patterns shaped by resonance, gravity, and the quiet pull of Saturn's mass. The quiet pull of Saturn's mass guides these icy fragments with patient grace, moving closer still. The rings separate into smaller bands, each one divided by gaps formed through gravitational interactions with Saturn's moons. The Cassini division, the broadest gap, stretches like a soft shadow between two bright bands. It is not empty. Fine dust still circles there, but the material's thin enough that darkness appears beneath them. Other divisions, narrower and more subtle, trace delicate lines across the rings, creating the sense of a carefully woven tapestry. A carefully woven tapestry of ice encircles this serene world, calming in its symmetry. Saturn's rings are thought to be relatively young, perhaps only 100 million years old, though some theories suggest they may be older. Regardless of their age, they express a beauty that feels timeless. Ice in the rings reflects sunlight with cool brilliance. Shadows cast by the rings onto Saturn curl along its upper atmosphere, forming sweeping arcs that move slowly as the planet rotates. These shadows deepen in winter and fade in summer, creating patterns that stretch and contract with the tilt of Saturn's axis. Shadows that stretch and contract mirror the quiet expansion and release of a settling breath. Saturn's atmosphere is calm in appearance, though it contains storms that swirl slowly beneath the cloud tops. The winds can be powerful, but from this gentle vantage, they seem more like flowing rivers of gas moving smoothly across broad latitudes. Occasional storms form pale ovals, moving with the currents. In the far north, a hexagonal jet stream circles the pole, a geometric wonder shaped by stable waves within the atmosphere. Its edges remain sharply defined, even as clouds drift in and out of its borders, moving with soft, swirling patterns that resemble brushstrokes drawn in steady, circular motion. Brushstrokes in steady motion bring a quiet order to Saturn's distant skies. Below the cloud tops, light fades into deeper layers of hydrogen and helium. As pressure increases, the gases become warm and dense, gradually transitioning into liquid, metallic hydrogen. Like Jupiter, Saturn holds a vast internal sea of this shimmering substance, generating a magnetic field that extends far into space. Saturn's auroras shine near the poles, glowing in hues of blue and violet as charged particles follow magnetic lines into the atmosphere. Light, glowing in violet rings, pulses softly at the poles, a whisper of energy in the dark around Saturn. Moons drift in wide arcs, each one carrying its own quiet presence. Titan, the largest, orbits with a hazy, golden atmosphere thicker than Earth's. Its skies glow in muted amber tones, while methane clouds drift slowly across its surface. Lakes of liquid methane and ethane gather near the poles, reflecting the dim sunlight in faint, glassy ripples. Titan's landscape, though cold, feels almost Earth-like in shape. Valleys, dunes, and shorelines etched by gentle chemistry and slow-moving winds. Slow-moving winds shape Titan's dunes into long, parallel ridges, golden and calm, and smaller and brighter, circles Saturn with a reflective sheen. Its icy crust shines white in the sunlight, coated in frost that sparkles like powdered silver. From its southern pole, geysers of water vapor erupt in soft, continuous plumes, sending icy grains into space. These grains drift upward until Saturn's gravity guides them into the planet's E-ring, replenishing it with tiny, reflective particles. Beneath Enceladus's surface lies a global ocean, warmed by tidal forces that flex the moon's interior. The ocean may harbor vents like those on Earth's seafloor, releasing heat into the darkness, a quiet cradle for potential life. A quiet cradle beneath. The ice invites the imagination to drift into gentle mystery. Farther out lies Rhea, a moon covered in craters softened by frost. Its surface holds bright patches where ice reflects sunlight, creating a mottled pattern of white and gray. Tethys drifts in a smooth, pale arc, marked by a giant canyon that stretches along its surface like a long, frozen line. Dione glows with streaks of bright ice, forming wisps of light across its cratered terrain. Each of these moons moves with calm precision, following orbits that remain steady across millions of years. Each moon carries its own stillness, orbiting with patient, unbroken rhythm. Near the outer edges of Saturn's influence lies Iapetus, a moon divided starkly between light and dark. One hemisphere reflects nearly all sunlight, while the other absorbs it, coated in dark material whose origin is still a quiet mystery. The contrast gives the moon an appearance of duality, half bright, half shadowed, like a world holding dawn on one side and dusk on the other. Despite the sharp contrast in color, the moon's path remains smooth, drifting through space in silent balance. Silent balance defines the movements of these distant moons. The narrow rings of Saturn reveal finer structure as we drift above them. Regions appear where particles cluster into wave-like patterns, rippling outward in gentle arcs caused by resonances with moons. These waves form spiral shapes that rotate slowly, moving in harmony with the gravitational influences around them. In some sections, the rings ripple vertically, rising and falling by a few meters as they respond to the tilt of nearby moons. These vertical waves cast delicate shadows, creating faint, undulating lines along the ring plane. Undulating lines shimmer like soft vibrations, frozen in time. Saturn itself casts a shadow across the rings, creating a dark shape that sweeps across the ice as the seasons change. In equinox periods, when the sun shines edge-on, the rings flatten into thin lines of shadow and light, almost disappearing against the planet's body. This seasonal illusion transforms the rings into a delicate silhouette barely visible from certain angles. Yet even then, their presence remains unmistakable, a faint band of reflected light curving around the giant world. A faint band of reflected light encircles Saturn like a gentle embrace as we drift higher. The rings become thinner until they resemble threads of pale gold stretching across a vast expanse. Gaps appear as dark spaces, then vanish as our angle changes. Light scatters through icy particles, creating glimmers that shift from silver to soft blue. The entire structure becomes a luminous haze, drifting in slow circles around the planet. In this luminous haze, the mind finds a quiet place to rest. Beyond the main rings, smaller, fainter rings extend outward. These are composed of tiny particles, some originating from distant moons, others from interactions with Saturn's magnetic field. They form tenuous arcs that fade gradually into the darkness. Among them, the Phoebe ring stretches far from the planet, formed from dust knocked off the irregular moon Phoebe by micrometeor impacts. This ring is so faint that it can only be seen in infrared light. but its presence adds another layer of quiet complexity to Saturn's system. Quiet complexity unfolds silently across the giant's realm as we drift farther from the rings. Saturn's smooth, golden sphere fills our view once more. The cloud bands continue their slow, harmonious dance, circling the world with gentle consistency. The hexagon at the North Pole holds its shape, its lines crisp even in the dimness. Auroras shimmer faintly. Storms drift softly across latitudes. Everything moves, but nothing feels hurried. Nothing feels hurried in this realm of ice, shadow, and gentle rotation. The space beyond Saturn cools into deeper blues, a darker, quieter region where sunlight weakens and the worlds ahead grow fainter. Yet before leaving this harmonious system, the rings offer one final look, a last glimmer of ice and dust, curving in perfect arcs toward the horizon. They reflect sunlight in muted flashes, as though offering a farewell gesture, calm and unbroken dot, and from the halo of ice and shadow, we drift toward the cool blue edges of our system. Where the distant giants wait beneath deeper skies, Uranus emerges slowly from the dimness ahead, a soft blue-green sphere resting quietly against the widening dark. At this distance from the sun, light has thinned into a pale, silvery wash, touching the planet's upper clouds with a muted glow that feels calm and evenly spread. Uranus does not shine with the vibrant bands of Jupiter, nor the golden hues of Saturn. Instead, it glows with a gentle, uniform color, cool, tranquil, almost glass-like. Its simplicity becomes its beauty, a quiet world untroubled by contrast. Untroubled by contrast, the planet drifts in serene rotation. The most striking feature of Uranus is its tilt, a dramatic sideways lean of nearly 90 degrees. Instead of spinning upright like most planets, it rolls through space like a slow-turning lantern on its side. This unusual orientation creates seasons unlike any others in the solar system, though the changes happen gradually across decades. For years at a time, one pole faces the sun in continuous daylight, while the other sinks into long, unbroken night. These seasons do not rush. They unfold with near-glacial pace, stretching time into soft, lingering phases that echo the stillness of the outer solar system. Soft, lingering phases unfold gently across the drifting planet. Uranus's atmosphere is made mostly of hydrogen, helium, and methane. Methane absorbs red wavelengths of sunlight, leaving behind the pale blue-green hue that defines its surface. High above the cloud tops, faint streaks sometimes appear, subtle storms that drift like pale brush marks across the planet's soft face. Though storms do form on Uranus, they move slowly, hidden beneath layers of haze that mute their expression. They are not the dramatic tempests of Jupiter. They are small, quiet shifts in texture, like ripples on a still lake stirred by a distant breeze. A distant breeze crosses a still lake, shaping gentle, shifting patterns. Faint rings circle Uranus, arranged in thin, dark bands. They are not bright like Saturn's. Instead, they appear as subtle arcs, barely visible, save when they catch just the right light. These rings are composed of dark particles, coated in carbon-rich material, formed from impacts or fragments left over from ancient collisions. They orbit the planet in neat, narrow paths, offering a delicate frame around Uranus's tilted form. A delicate frame of darkness circles the pale world in quiet balance. The moons of Uranus orbit in alignment with this sideways tilt, following equatorial paths that stand nearly vertical relative to the rest of the solar system. Among them, 5 larger moons, Miranda, Ariel, Umbriel, Titania, and Oberon, drift in slow arcs, each carrying its own landscape of craters and canyons. Miranda, the smallest of the 5, appears patchwork and broken, shaped by ancient upheaval that created cliffs and ridges unlike those found anywhere else. Its surface holds enormous structures, but the world feels peaceful now. Its activity long faded into memory. Activity faded into memory leaves room for quiet reflection, Ariel shows. Bright canyons carved by flowing ices, while Umbriel rests in deeper shadow, covered in darker material that absorbs most of the faint sunlight. Titania and Oberon, the largest, hold wide plains and old craters softened by frost. These moons move slowly through space, their motions unhurried, touched only by the gentle pull of gravity and the thin wash of sunlight that reaches them. Thin sunlight touches each moon with a calm, blue-white glow as we drift outward. Uranus begins to shrink behind us, its soft color fading into the dark. Ahead, Neptune appears with a deeper hue, a rich, cool blue shaped by methane absorption and atmospheric depth. Neptune's color is darker than Uranus's, more saturated, like an ocean reflecting twilight. It glows faintly, a serene apparition in the cold, reaches beyond Saturn, where sunlight travels for hours before brushing its outer clouds. A serene apparition rises from the quiet edges of space. Neptune's atmosphere is more active than Uranus's, though still calm from this peaceful vantage. Winds here are strong by scientific measure, but from afar they appear as broad, sweeping motions that carve arcs of white clouds across the blue sphere. Thin streaks of methane ice drift through the atmosphere in curved shapes, tracing paths left by deeper currents. Occasionally, dark storm spots form large oval regions where clouds swirl in slow circles. These storms can last months, shifting in position and fading as atmospheric patterns shift. The world breathes in slow, steady rhythm, like Jupiter and Saturn. Neptune also has rings, faint, dusty arcs that encircle the planet in soft, broken bands. Some of these rings contain brighter clumps, thought to be shaped by nearby moons whose gravity compacts dust into thicker regions. These arcs move with the planet, appearing and disappearing from sight. They do not shine brightly, they whisper rather than speak, offering only subtle hints of their structure in the cold. Outer dark, subtle hints drift through the dusty rings, forming quiet curves around the blue giant. Neptune's collection of moons includes Triton, a world that moves in a retrograde orbit, circling the planet in the opposite direction of Neptune's rotation. This unusual motion suggests Triton was once a wandering body, captured long ago by Neptune's gravity. Triton is large, cold, and covered in nitrogen ice that reflects sunlight with a faint pink-tinted sheen. Its surface is active with geysers that release plumes of nitrogen gas, rising softly into the thin atmosphere before falling back as delicate frost. Delicate frost settles across Triton's plains like quiet stars, on frozen ground. The cold on Triton is deeper than almost anywhere else in the solar system. Temperatures fall low enough for nitrogen itself to freeze. Yet even here, with sunlight so faint, subtle motions persist. Geysers bloom, ice shifts, and the surface slowly reshapes itself. The atmosphere, though thin, drifts in small, calm breezes that carry particles across the plains. Everything happens slowly, gently, patiently, slowly, gently, patiently. The outer worlds move through their long orbits, beyond Triton and Neptune's rings. The solar system fades into the Kuiper Belt, a vast realm of icy bodies drifting in immense arcs. These objects move in darkness, lit only faintly by the distant sun. Some are round, some elongated, some clustered in families shaped by long gravitational dances. Pluto, Eris, Haumea, Makemake, each holds its own quiet story, its own frozen tides, its own slow spinning days. Slow spinning days pass like distant, muted echoes of time, yet even before reaching these scattered worlds, Neptune's presence imposes a quiet boundary. It marks the edge of the classical planets, the outermost major world, orbiting in calm, steady motion. As we drift farther outward, Neptune's deep blue glow begins to dim. Its storms soften into pale shapes, its rings fade, its moon Triton shrinks into a distant point. The cold becomes more profound, the silence widens. The silence widens until the world seems to float on the breath of the stars. At this distance, sunlight loses its warmth. It becomes a thin thread of illumination stretched across space, touching surfaces with faint silver rather than gold. The giant worlds reflect just enough of it to create soft auras, but beyond them, darkness gathers more completely. Uranus and Neptune dwell in this shadowed expanse, worlds shaped not by warmth, but by the gentle sway of gravity and the chemistry of deep cold. In the chemistry of deep cold, the universe reveals another kind of calm. Uranus's tilt, Neptune's storms, Triton's geysers, each holds a hint of motion in the stillness. But here, far from the inner worlds, movement takes on a different feeling. It slows, it softens. It becomes part of a larger, quieter rhythm that stretches across billions of kilometers. Time feels slower. Distance feels wider. The familiar urgency of the inner planets fades into the background. Familiar urgency fades, replaced by the steady drift of cosmic dusk. From this vantage, the solar system appears as a sequence of soft glows, fading into dark, bright, near the sun, muted beyond Jupiter, faint at Neptune's edge. The temperature, the light, and the movement all fall into a calm gradient, guiding the mind into rest. Even the knowledge of strong winds or deep seas here does not disrupt the stillness. Everything is softened by distance, transformed by scale, made gentle by the cold, made gentle by the cold. The outer solar system becomes a place of quiet contemplation. Though distant and often overlooked, contribute to the balance of the solar system. Their gravity shapes the orbits of smaller bodies. Their composition preserves early cosmic material. Their silence holds the memory of the sun's youth and the solar system's formation. In their cold shells and faint rings lie fragments of ancient processes that built everything closer to home. Fragments of ancient processes drift like frozen whispers through the dark. The space beyond Neptune extends into the interstellar medium. But before stepping toward that threshold, we turn gently inward. The calm blue of Neptune fades behind us. Uranus's soft glow recedes. The two planets become pale dots in a dark sea. Ahead lies the familiar path toward home, the warmth of the inner worlds, the glow of the sun. The memory of earlier chapters drifting like quiet echoes as those echoes rise. A final reassurance touches the journey. If your eyes linger open in this deep blue calm, your body is already settling, already finding the rhythm that brings rest. Let the stillness here soften the edges of thought. Let the wide, cold dark guide the mind toward peace. Let the wide, cold dark guide the mind toward peace, steady and quiet. And from the soft blue shadows, we drift toward the edge of our solar family, where the long journey circles back toward the warmth that waits nearer the sun. The journey turns gently inward now, and the long arc of the night begins to fold back upon itself. Behind us, the distant giants fade into muted points of blue and green, softened by the vastness that stretches between one world and the next. Ahead, a faint glow gathers the familiar light of the inner system, the same light that has guided every step of this drifting path. In this returning motion, the story becomes quieter, warmer, more reflective, as though the solar system itself exhales after a long, slow breath. You've traveled through silence and science tonight, moving from the warm glow of the sun to the pale edges of Neptune's shadow. Each world shared a part of its calm Mercury with its long, lingering days, Venus wrapped in golden clouds, Earth turning in rhythms of breath and tide, the moon holding its silver quiet, Mars whispering through dust-filled valleys, Jupiter spiraling in deep atmospheric currents, Saturn shimmering with haloed ice, Uranus drifting in pale, tilted sleep, Neptune humming in cold blue winds. They form a chain of moments now, softened by distance, connected by the steady pull of memory. The steady pull of memory gathers these moments into a gentle hush. The path inward is unhurried. It unfolds in smooth arcs, tracing the orbits we once followed outward. Sunlight grows stronger, though still dim at first. A thin, silvery thread stretched across the quiet. As we drift through it, the light seems to warm the space around us, softening the dark into a quiet gray, then into something warmer still. It is the same light that touched Saturn's rings in cool tones, that glided over Jupiter's swirling storms, that brushed the frozen plains of Triton. Here, nearer the center, the light feels rounder, fuller, a calm reminder of familiar warmth. A calm reminder of familiar warmth settles into the breath. None of the worlds rush past. They appear gently in their time, like memories rising from a still pool. Mars glows faintly in red as we drift by, its wide deserts holding ancient echoes beneath thin skies. The moon's gray surface appears in soft shadow, its craters muted and pale. Earth follows, wrapped in swirls of white cloud and blue ocean. Even from afar, it feels steady, like a heartbeat in planetary form. These glimpses of home feel layered with meaning, shaped not by urgency but by quiet recognition. After drifting so far outward, returning to the inner system feels like stepping slowly toward a familiar room. one touched by everyday rhythms and soft repetitions. Tides move, clouds gather, winds shift over open landscapes. The world continues its slow turning, offering a sense of steadiness that mirrors the settling of the body at rest. The settling of the body at rest echoes the settling of the world beneath calm skies. As the sun grows brighter in the distance, its warmth is no longer something abstract. It becomes a soft presence, a quiet center, drawing each wandering thought back into a smaller circle. Planets that once seemed immense now fade into memories of color and motion. What remains is a sense of scale, the realization that even the vastness of the solar system holds its own gentle order, its own rhythm of distance and return, expansion and rest. In this returning motion, the solar system becomes a metaphor for the self-cycles of energy, followed by moments of calm, places of intensity balanced by stretches of silence. Light travels from the sun to the planets in straight, patient lines. Gravity binds worlds, two long, looping paths. Dust drifts in slow arcs, reflected by faint rays. Everything that exists within this expanse follows rules shaped by nature's quiet persistence. Nature's quiet persistence holds everything in soft and steady balance. You drift through this balance now, carried by the same forces that guide planets and moons, warmed by the same sunlight that touches oceans and deserts alike. There is no need to hold anything tightly here. Thoughts can loosen and fall into softer shapes. The mind can follow the same gentle orbits it has traced throughout the night's journey, wide at first, wandering through distant worlds, then circling inward, spiraling into a smaller, steadier rhythm. If you're still here, your body already knows what peace feels like. It has followed these paths in its own way, breath rising and falling, muscles releasing, thoughts slowing into longer, quieter stretches. The quiet you feel now is not separate from the worlds you passed. It is part of the same continuum, the same steadying silence that drifts through the outer dark and the inner spaces alike. The inner spaces alike glow with the same quiet that fills the starlit void. We drift closer to the sun now, though still far enough that its light feels gentle rather than bright. At this point in the journey, the return is not about movement through space, but about movement into rest. Every breath becomes a small world, every pause a soft horizon. The immensity of the solar system folds back into something intimate, something that fits within the quiet room you rest in now, as though the night sky gently narrows until it aligns with the rhythm of your settling breath. As the last traces of the outer dark fade from view, the warmth of the inner system offers a final sense of ease, a feeling that the journey has circled back to its source, where light is steady and the worlds are familiar, and the silence feels close enough to hold. Close enough to hold. The quiet settles into a final shape, soft and complete. Thank you for sharing this quiet path, for drifting through these distant worlds with patience and openness, for allowing the night to carry you through places shaped by calm winds and slow-turning suns. The solar system holds many truths, but the gentlest among them is this: even in vastness there is peace. Even in darkness there is warmth. Even in motion there is rest. And now, as the journey comes to its softest close, may the quiet remain with you. May the calm of Saturn's rings, the hush of lunar dust, the slow breath of Earth, and the distant blue of Neptune linger gently around you. Let them settle like soft starlight, easing you into deeper rest. Good night.